Cleopatra, a name that conjures power, brilliance, and mystery. As the final ruler of ancient Egypt, her legend looms large, but one question continues to stir curiosity. Was she descended from Alexander the Great? The answer is no. Cleopatra shared no blood with the Macedonian conqueror, yet her life was inextricably tied to his legacy. To understand her place in history, we must explore the empire she inherited and the ancient dream she struggled to keep alive. When Alexander the Great died unexpectedly, he left behind not only an unmatched empire, but a gaping void in power. His vision of a realm that stretched across continents died with him. The unity he created splintered in a brutal struggle called the Wars of the Diadochi. Because Alexander hadn't clearly chosen a successor, his most trusted commanders, now rivals, fought over the spoils of his kingdom. Among them was Ptolemy I, one of Alexander's closest allies. Rather than compete for the whole empire, Ptolemy seized Egypt. He recognized its immense wealth, culture, and position as keys to building lasting influence. He began as governor, but quickly declared himself pharaoh, founding a new dynasty in the land of the Nile. Ptolemy understood symbolism. To anchor his rule to Alexander's glory, he claimed his fallen king's body and buried it in Alexandria, a powerful gesture that blended reverence with political calculation. Some claimed Ptolemy was Alexander's half-brother, the secret son of Philip II. Whether myth or truth, it helped solidify his reign and blur the lines of legacy. But Cleopatra's ancestry did not trace back to Alexander. She came from Ptolemy's line, born of a general's ambition, not a king's blood. Ptolemy's rule was transformative. Though he wore the title of pharaoh, he governed as a Greek monarch, combining Hellenistic rule with Egyptian traditions. Alexandria blossomed into a thriving capital of culture and power. The Ptolemies who followed continued this balance, holding on to Greek identity while ruling Egyptian land. Yet beneath the surface of prosperity, unrest brewed. The dynasty balanced precariously on the favor of a Greek elite while keeping native Egyptians on the outside. Over generations, resentment deepened. The Ptolemies guarded their bloodline fiercely, marrying within their family to preserve Macedonian purity. But while they held fast to old traditions, the world moved on. By the time Cleopatra rose to power, Egypt was at a crossroads, trapped between fading Greek customs, native Egyptian pride, and a new Roman storm. Cleopatra knew she couldn't rely on bloodlines alone. She needed to evolve to survive. Cleopatra was shaped by a dynasty that had ruled Egypt for centuries, but never truly belonged to it. Her father, Ptolemy XII, owed his fragile rule to Roman support more than local acceptance. The royal family lived in Alexandria, the Greek city Alexander had built, wrapped in privilege and far from the realities of their people. They spoke Koine Greek and kept themselves separate. Cleopatra, however, would break that mold. She learned to speak the Egyptian language, presenting herself not as a foreign queen, but as a true daughter of Egypt. To her subjects, she was more than a ruler. She was a symbol of unity. In a kingdom divided between two cultures, Cleopatra represented hope that the ancient land could have a leader who embodied both. Her court became a magnet for brilliance. Scholars, scientists, diplomats, they gathered in Alexandria, where Cleopatra's intellect and charisma created an empire of the mind. She saw that Egypt's survival in a Roman-dominated world would require more than tradition. It needed alliances, strategy, and innovation. Under her guidance, Egypt entered a cultural revival. But the threats at its borders grew ever closer. Rome loomed, not just as a power, but as an inevitable force. Cleopatra's reign would be a test of will and of vision. Rome's presence in Egypt became impossible to ignore. The murder of Pompey the Great at the hands of Cleopatra's brother Ptolemy XIII plunged Egypt into Roman drama. Cleopatra seized the moment. She is said to have smuggled herself into Julius Caesar's chambers, wrapped in a rug. Whether truth or legend, the outcome is fact. She won Caesar's support and reclaimed her throne. Unlike rulers before her, Cleopatra didn't merely inherit power, she shaped it. Her relationship with Caesar was deliberate, a political move wrapped in personal intrigue. Together they had a son, Caesarion, whose existence challenged Rome's fragile politics. But after Caesar's assassination, the alliance unraveled. Cleopatra needed a new protector. She found one in Mark Antony. Antony was a Roman powerhouse, and their union, romantic and political, was built on shared ambition. From Alexandria, they forged a dream, a joint empire that could rival Rome itself. 3 children, joint rule, a new vision for the East. But Octavian, Caesar's heir, saw them as a threat. At the naval battle of Actium, his forces crushed theirs. Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt, their empire crumbling. Believing Cleopatra dead, Antony took his own life. But she lived. In a last effort, Cleopatra tried to negotiate with Octavian. He refused. He wanted to parade her through Rome, a living trophy of his triumph. Rather than face that, Cleopatra chose death on her own terms. The story says she used an asp's bite to end her life. Whether poison, blade, or serpent, her death was a final defiant act. With her passing, the Ptolemaic Dynasty fell. Egypt, once the jewel of empires, became just another Roman province. Cleopatra's death wasn't just the end of a queen, it was the end of an era. The Hellenistic world that Alexander had built finally faded. Though she wasn't born of Alexander's blood, she ruled from the city he created, carried forward the dynasty his general founded, and defended the last flickering light of his vast legacy. Cleopatra was his final political heir, the last to embody the spirit of that ancient dream. Her story didn't end with death. Like Alexander, she became more than mortal, a legend etched into time. Their blood may not have mixed, but their destinies are bound together, forever linked in the echoing chambers of history.